Hello, Miss Halle.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Very, very well. Such a pleasure to talk with you today.
You too.
So you play a NASA executive. Originally, this role was written for a man, but obviously that changed. What was it about this character and this film that made you want to hop on board?
Well, that was one reason. To be a black woman and be able to play the head of NASA seemed pretty exciting to me. Um, I had played an astronaut in a television series a few years ago, and I had done so much research, and this gave me an opportunity to sort of revisit that world that I'd come to love through that television show. And, you know, Nobody makes these movies, in my opinion, better than Roland Emmerich. He is the king of the big um, sci-fi disaster CGI movie, right? And
Mm.
fans love these kinds of movies. Like they're always crowd pleasers, and so to be a part of that and to work with Roland was a real treat.
And I don't know about you, but space, the idea of it gives me anxiety to think about and to watch these movies. But now people are flying into space all the time. After doing a movie like this and studying space, would you go into space?
No,
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 not at all.
it's not what I'm interested in doing. No.
So it was 20 years ago that you won your Oscar. You just made your directorial debut, and now you're starring in Moonfall. What is next for Halle Berry?
I don't know. I want to just keep doing my career, living my life on my own terms, doing what challenges me, what excites me. I knew that I needed a new chapter in my life, so directing became something that I got fixated on. Being in control, telling a story from a female point of view was really important to me, and I think that will continue to be important to me.
And so, do you think you will direct again in the future?
Yes, I do.
And was there any, you were working with Roland Emmerich, were there any very special moments that you can remember on set?
Well, this was a very different way to work. We started this movie at the beginning of the pandemic. There were no vaccines yet. Everybody was covered in hazmat suits and shields and double masked. And, it didn't really lend itself to have those kinds of moments because we all had to be so separated and isolated from each other. The only time I saw, Patrick and John were when we were in our cockpit and they were about to call action and we got to take our stuff off and we could actually see their faces. So, and many times my face was like covered in pimples. When you wear these masks all day long, you just start like breaking out, right?
Oh, yeah, I
So
can relate.
it was like, "Ugh." But a special moment was, I guess, just being with everyone and working in the pandemic. That's a special moment that we all had because it was really hard. It was very different than any other experience I think any of us have ever had.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so, so much for talking with me today, and
Thank
congratulations
you.
on the film.
Thank you.
Hello, Patrick. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
I'm very well. I absolutely love the film. It was such a fun, fun ride. What was it about this script and about this film that really made you want to hop on board?
I think it was just what you just said. Looked like a fun ride. It's nice to do a movie that is just escapist fun. I hadn't done a disaster movie, and I don't get a chance to do a lot of science fiction. So there are a lot of new things for me in this. It was an easy yes, and I had worked with Roland before, so I knew it would be a fun experience.
And you have teamed up with Roland, who is, the mastermind of many disaster films. What is it about end of the world films that you think people love so much?
I think it's a number of things. I think in a similar way to a horror movie that provides the scare and it kind of makes you think, well, as bad as my life can feel, it's not that bad. But there's also the release, right? Like it's always a good horror movie is also very well crafted, and I think a disaster movie is also really well crafted in that even if it gets so scary and overwhelming and oh my gosh, what's going to happen to these people? I care about them so much. Usually, with the exception of Don't Look Up, usually movies, a big disaster movie ends on a some kind of positive emotional success. Even if there's a big disaster, the people that you care about, there's some sense of closure, and I think that's important for people. You know, And also, people just like seeing a lot of stuff blow up.
That too. The special effects were awesome.
There's that.
And what's one of your favorite things about your character? And are there any things that you can relate to in your personal life?
I mean, I think ultimately we'd arrive at the same position of if I was called to duty and had the skill set, I would go for it just like he would. I mean, I'd like to think that my path would be a little different. He's a little floundering. I think I've got my stuff together a little more than he does at the beginning of the movie. But that's what makes it fun to play a guy that's really frayed and coming apart, and watch how he pulls himself together and has a stronger relationship with his kid at the end. So I can relate to the ending a little more than I can relate to the beginning of Brian, but that's good. That's why it's make believe.
Was there any like zero gravity training that you guys had to do?
Not, I will say, not a ton. I mean, luckily, Halle did a TV show for like 2 years. I did Aquaman and had done a lot of weightless work and wires and underwater and all of that. So I was comfortable in that setting. John hadn't done much of that, so it was a different experience for him. But we didn't have a lot of time or capability because we were shooting during the height of COVID. So it just took a lot of imagination, really. But I was thankful that I had the wire work experience, because if not, I don't think I would have been able to do most of those stunts.
And now that you've been in a space movie, would you go into space yourself?
I mean, in theory, because I'm an adventurous guy, I'd love to. I think I'd need to wait till it gets a little more normalized, because I'm usually things that are dangerous and strictly for me and my enjoyment, I'm not going to do as a father of two and a husband, and it's just like risk and reward. So I can't say I would be like on the next shuttle trip, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd have to wait. But like I've said this before, like I imagine this is also what it felt like a long time ago. And people were like, "Do you think you'd get in those things called airplanes that fly across the country?" And people would be like, "No way, that's never gonna work." So I'm sure in 30 years they'll be like, "Please go to the moon. Come on, I can go there and back in a weekend."
Yeah, never say never, right?
That's right.
All right, well, thank you so much for talking with me. It's been a pleasure.
You're welcome. Thank you. Take care.
I just saw the film. Your character is a breath of fresh air when the world is ending. Do you feel like you relate to your character that you play?
Yeah, I relate to him in so many ways. One of the key ways I relate to him is that, he's been fixated and obsessed with space from a very young age. Never thought in a million years he'd ever get to go up there. And I sort of feel the same way about movies and acting and stuff. Never did I think that I'd get to be in a movie with Halle Berry or directed by Roland Emmerich. So that personal sense of achievement against, in very, very unlikely odds, that sense of achievement I really connected with in a slightly warped way, but 100%.
And you do work with Halle Berry, Patrick Wilson. You guys make such a fun gang of threesomes. Were there any special moments on set that you can remember?
It's a strange thing because this was filmed completely in lockdown, in COVID isolation. So we couldn't spend that much time with each other at all, because there were COVID protocols in place, and there was absolutely no social side to this movie whatsoever. Normally you're allowed to spend some time with each other away from the cameras. You either have your breakfast together in the morning, or you hang out in between takes, or you go out for dinner at night. There was none of that, so we had a lot of fun, but it was all sort of heavily mandated, where we didn't see each other's faces for most of it. So there wasn't a great deal of fun, but what there was a real sort of chemistry on camera that I hope comes across really nicely.
I definitely think it did. I very much enjoyed the movie. And after doing a space movie, would you consider going into space yourself?
I think so. What would be guaranteed to happen if I got offered the chance to go into space? I would want to, but I'd chicken out of it. I wouldn't go, and then I'd regret it for the rest of my life. I know myself too well. That's exactly what would happen. I mean, space travel's evolving all the time. It just doesn't quite feel safe enough for me just yet, but never say never.
Yeah, who knows? The way that it's happening today, it's like people are just going for fun. So give it a few years.
Exactly.
And what do you think it is about these end of the world films that people really love?
I think it's the enormous sense of relief when they come out of the theatre and it's not true. It's a bit like having a nightmare and waking up and realizing that it wasn't real and you're just still in your bedroom and the world goes on the same. You allow yourself to commit to the idea of it, and then when you come out, you just appreciate life all the more, and you appreciate the little things that you maybe overlooked in the past. And I may have certain worries and frustrations and complaints in life, but at least the moon isn't smashing into the earth, so there's always that.
There you go. Well said. Well, thank you so much, John. It was such a pleasure.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, congratulations on Moonfall. I just saw it and mind blown. So you're obviously known for your disaster films. How did you get the idea for this one?
Well, I read a book called Who Built the Moon? And it just like kind of every time I looked at the moon, I said, oh my God, this is like an artificial object. And then you ask yourself, oh, well, they offered like three theories about it. But then I kind of said, like, I have to find my own theory.
So that's where it was all born. Yeah. And what is it about these end of the world themes that really interest you in general?
Well, it was like kind of one where it was more a kind of space movie, where if they don't do what they supposed to do, their kids are dying. So that was for me, the heart of the movie, and the disaster aspect on the moon on Earth is relatively short when you see my other movies, but I think it's really exciting what happens inside the moon.
And I heard that Halle Berry's role was originally written for a man. What was the change to make that a female-led role?
I just thought, it's like kind of, like kind of more appropriate. She's a woman, and we had like actually for a while, like kind of maybe Patrick has to be a woman, but then we like decided it's probably more interesting when Halle Berry kind of like kind of is the second in command of NASA. I also like kind of think it was a huge surprise to us that like an Oscar winner like her wants to play a part like that, and we were terribly excited about that.
Is there just one thing that you're super excited for the audience to see?
Well, there's this moment, when they fly inside the moon, which I think is the highlight of this whole movie.
Yes, it was definitely so much fun, and congratulations, and thank you for talking with me today.